everyone, welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners. Now let's start today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in detail in our today's video. Our first article is RTI Scrutiny will ruin judicial independence. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. Here the Attorney General of India is saying that the revelations of the Collegium under right to information will ruin the independence of judiciary. From the prelims point of view, we should know about what is this right to information and what is this CIC that is mentioned in this article, and we should know about this Attorney General of India. First, let us see about this Attorney General of India. The Attorney General is the first law officer of India, and he is the chief legal advisor to the central government, and he will represent the central government as a lawyer in the Supreme Court. Who appoints this Attorney General? It is the President of India under the Article of 76 Clause 1 of the Indian Constitution appoints this Attorney General. So this Attorney General is a constitutional body. What about the term? It is not fixed by the Constitution, and Constitution didn't even provide the grounds for his removal. So as he is appointed by the President, he will hold the office during the pleasure of the President. Then what about the qualifications that were required to be an Attorney General of India? He should be qualified to be appointed as a judge of Supreme Court, or he must have been a judge of some High Court for 5 years, or an advocate of some High Court for 10 years, or he should be an eminent jurist in the opinion of President, and he must be a citizen of India. Now let us see what are his duties and his functions. He has to advise the government of India in the legal matters that are referred to him, and he should perform other legal duties that are assigned to him by the President. And he has the right of audience in all the courts in India. This is important. And he has the right to participate in the proceedings of Parliament, though he doesn't have a right to vote. Even this is important. He can participate in the proceedings of Parliament, but he doesn't have a right to vote. He appears on behalf of the government of India in all the cases in the Supreme Court in which the government of India is concerned, and he represents the government of India in any case that is referred by the President to the Supreme Court under Article 143 of the Constitution. And he will be consulted only in case of legal matters of real importance, and only after the law minister is consulted. Here it is the law minister who will refer to the Attorney General, and this Attorney General will be assisted by the Solicitor General and 4 other additional Solicitor Generals. Now let's look about this Right to Information Act of 2005. What is meant by right to information? It means the freedom of people to have access to the government information. That means the citizens and the non-governmental organizations, they can get access to all the files and documents that are related to government's operations, decisions and performance. Then what is the basis for this Right to Information Act? This right to information concept is an intrinsic part of 2 fundamental rights. They are Article 19 that deals with right to freedom of speech and expression, and also Article 21 that deals with right to life and personal liberty. Now let's try to understand how a citizen can acquire information under this RTI of 2005. For a citizen who wants some information, he has to file an application, and that application can be in any language, whether in English or any language. And he can file this application in a written format, that is through hard copy or electronic medium, and he has to pay the application fees. Whereas the application fee is free in case of BPL, people belonging to below poverty line. And the citizen can even ask the information orally, and he has to provide the contact details, and there is no need to provide a reason for which he is seeking that information. And under the provisions of this RTI of 2005, every department head of the department, it is mandatory on his part to constitute a public information officer. So now the citizen will file an application to this public information officer. There are three ways here. This public information officer can accept that application and provide information to the citizen within 30 days. And the next case is, here let us say that citizen has applied to a wrong department. That means the citizen is seeking the information which cannot be provided by this department. Then it is the responsibility of this public information officer to send that application to a relevant department within 5 days, and he should also convey this information to the citizen. And the next thing is exemptions. The public information officer can say that the information that the citizen is asking for cannot be provided under section 8 of this RTI Act, because there are some issues that were put under this section 8 which cannot be disclosed to the citizen. That is another way. So now let us say the citizen has applied to a relevant department and the public information officer has accepted the application and he has provided the information to the citizen within 30 days. But the citizen is not satisfied with the information that is provided by the PIO. Then he can approach the first appellate authority, who is a one level higher officer to this public information officer. Then he is the first appellate authority. Whereas if the public information officer intentionally rejects in providing the information, then the citizen can file a complaint to the Central Information Commission or a State Information Commission. And here the CIC and SIC will be considered as a second appellate authorities. And here, if the citizen is still not satisfied with the information provided by these authorities, then the citizen can approach the courts. Because right to information now is a legal right, so that he can approach courts. And here the time period to provide response is 30 days. This is the maximum time period. Whereas here, in case if the citizen has approached an irrelevant department, here they will get extra 5 days. So if this time period has got delayed in providing the information, then for every day that has got delayed, the PIO, the public information officer, has to pay the penalty of rupees 250 per day. The next article is Bleaching Hits World's Southernmost Coral Reef. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of environment. Here, the world's southernmost coral reef of Lord Howe Island was hit by bleaching. The topics that were relevant from prelims point of view is coral reef. These coral reefs are made up of thousands of tiny animals called as coral polyps. And these coral polyps are shallow water organisms which will have a soft body, and that body will be covered by a calcareous skeleton. These polyps, they extract the calcium salts from sea water in order to form this hard skeletons. And these skeletons, they grow upwards and outwards as a cemented rocky mass. And these collectively, so many coral polyps which were having upward and outwarded skeletons were known as corals. When these coral polyps, they die, they will shed this skeleton on which the new polyps will grow. And this cycle will repeat, and over millions of years, the accumulation of the layers of these corals will be known as a reef. As it is made up of corals, it is known as a coral reef. The next article is the sudden release of water from dams worsened Kerala floods. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of disaster management. The Amicus Curiae, who was appointed by the Kerala High Court in order to assist it in flood related cases, the Amicus Curiae has informed to the court that the sudden release of water from different reservoirs at a time has aggravated the damage during the floods. Here we should know what is meant by this Amicus Curiae. In simple language, Amicus Curiae means friend of the court, friend of court. He is someone who is not a party to a case, or he is not someone to whom this case is referred to. He is the person who will assist the court by providing information and his expertise, his knowledge or insights regarding a particular issue in the case. The next article is Air Pollution Shortened Lifespan by 30 Months. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment. Here, the State of Global Air Report of 2019 was published by Health Effects Institute. According to this report, the current level of air pollution has reduced the lifespan of a South Asian child by 2.5 years. And from the prelims point of view, from this article, we should know what are the findings of this report and what is this Pradhanmantri Ujjwala Yojana and what are these Bharat Stage 6 clean fuel standards and what is this National Clean Air Program. First, let us see what are the findings of this report. According to this State of Global Air 2019 report, in 2017, India has faced 1.2 million deaths because of air pollution, and air pollution is the third highest cause of death in India. Both China and India, they together are responsible for more than half of the total global deaths just because of air pollution. And in 2017, this air pollution, both indoor as well as outdoor, has led to 5 million deaths across the world due to stroke, diabetes, heart attack, lung cancer and chronic lung diseases. Out of this 5 million, 3 million deaths are due to particulate matter of size 2.5. And of these 3 million, half of, that is 1.5 million, are from India and China. Now let's look about this Pradhanmantri Ujjwala Yojana. India is a home to more than 24 crore households. Out of these 24 crore households, still 10 crore households are deprived of this liquefied petroleum gas as their cooking fuel. And still they rely on the primary sources of cooking, that is like firewood, coal, all this. But the smoke from burning these fuels has resulted in household pollution and it has affected the health of women and children. According to World Health Organization's report, the smoke that is inhaled by the women due to this unclean fuel is equivalent to burning 400 cigarettes in an hour. So, to avoid this situation, the government has launched this Pradhanmantri Ujjwala Yojana. The aim of this program is to protect the health of women and children by providing the clean cooking fuel, that is LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, so that they don't have to compromise their health in smoky kitchens. This program was launched in 2016. Under this scheme, 5 crore LPG connections will be provided to the BPL families with the support of 1600 rupees per connection by 2019. This is the target, to provide 5 crore LPG connections with 1600 rupees per connection as a support. And how these beneficiaries were identified. Based on the socio-economic and caste census data, the BPL families will be identified for providing the benefits under this scheme. Another objective of this scheme is to empower the rural women. In ensuring the women's empowerment, especially in rural India, here the connections will be issued in the name of the women of the households. And this program will result in an additional employment of around 1 lakh jobs, and it will boost the Make in India campaign, because all the manufacturers of the cylinders, gas stoves, regulators and gas hose are domestic under this program. The next concept is, we should know what is this National Clean Air Program. This National Clean Air Program is a 5-year action plan in 1 or 2 non-attainment cities. What is this non-attainment cities? We are having national air quality standards. These national air quality standards are the standards above which the pollutants shouldn't be released in the air. So these 1 or 2 cities are the cities which failed to be in line with this national air quality standards. So these cities were selected and a 5-year action plan was set up in order to reduce the particulate matter of size 2.5 and of size 10, to reduce them by 20 to 30% by 2024, and the levels by 2024 should be as of their levels in 2017. But these are not legally binding on those cities. You can ask how they have selected these non-attainment cities. They have selected this based on 2011 and 2015 of their ambient air quality standards. As part of this program, the center has decided to set up air quality monitoring network across the country. And here the plan has proposed for a 3-tier system, including a real-time physical data collection and data archiving and an action trigger system in all the 1 or 2 cities. And it has also proposed for state level plans of e-mobility in the 2-wheeler sector. And it has set up various committees under this program. The Apex committee is headed by the Environment Minister, and a steering committee will be under the Secretary of Environment, and the monitoring committee will be headed by the Joint Secretary. And there will be this project monitoring committees at state level with the scientists and trained personnel as its members. Now let's see what are these Bharat Stage norms. These were introduced in 2000. Here BS stands for Bharat Stage. These are the emission regulation standards that were set by the Indian regulatory bodies. To be specific, it is the Central Pollution Control Board. And these Bharat Stage norms are based on European regulations. Euro norms, they define the maximum limit of pollutant a vehicle can emit. If the vehicle emits more than this limit, it cannot be sold in Europe. In India, we follow the Euro norms under the label Bharat Stage norms. So we are gradually implementing these norms in more and more cities in order to regulate the output of air pollutants from IC engine equipment, including motor vehicles. Since October 2010, these Bharat Stage 3 norms were being enforced across the country, and in 13 major cities, Bharat Stage 4 emission norms were in place since 2010. In 2016, the Indian government has announced that it will skip these Euro 5 norms and they will opt for Euro 6 norms by 2020. And 2020 is the deadline for rolling out of BS6 fuel. The next article is Tough Issues in Fighting Corruption. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. This article is about the importance of interagency coordination in fighting corruption. From the prelims point of view, we should know about this Lokpal and Lokayukta, CBI and CVC that were mentioned in this article. Dear students, here I am not going to cover about Lokpal because in our yesterday's video at 18 minutes 45 seconds, I have discussed in detail about the evaluation of Lokpal and also about the appointment process and what are the functions of Lokpal. So now in this video, let us see about this CBI and CVC. First, let us see about this CBI. Central Bureau of Investigation is the India's premier investigating agency that handles all the high profile cases. Its job is to ensure a fair and impartial investigation. Now let's see the evolution of this CBI. The CBI was not established through any act of parliament, but it derives its powers of investigation from Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. The origins of the CBI can be traced back to the Special Police Establishment that was set up in 1941 in order to investigate the cases of bribery and corruption in the War and Supply Department of India during Second World War, and the need for the central government agency to investigate cases of bribery and corruption was felt after the end of this Second World War. So, Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946 was enacted, and this act has given legal powers for investigating cases to the CBI. And this CBI comes under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. The appointment process of the CBI director is very important because it is continuously in use and this has been facing the controversies. So there is a probability of getting a question from this appointment process of CBI director. The CBI is headed by a director who is an IPS officer of the rank of Director General of Police, DGP. Before the Lokpal Act was enacted in 2014, the appointment was made on the basis of Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. But this act was revised in 2003 based on the recommendations of Supreme Court, so as to make the appointment process of the agency's director transparent. So under this revised act, the central government has formed a commission that was headed by the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, and the committee also had members from CVC, secretaries from Home Ministry, Ministry of Personnel and Public Grievances. This committee will send its recommendations to the central government, and the central government will then appoint this CBI director. And later, the Lokpal Act has come into force in 2014. Again, this appointment process has underwent a change. This act has provided for an empowered committee for appointing the CBI chief, and this committee is headed by the Prime Minister, and it has the leader of opposition as its member, and it also has the Chief Justice of India or a Supreme Court judge who is recommended by the Chief Justice of India as its member. This process will begin in the Home Ministry, who will prepare the list of eligible IPS officers for the post, and they will send this list to the Department of Personnel and Training. This department will prepare the final list based on seniority, integrity and experience in investigation of anti-corruption cases. This list will then go to this committee that was headed by the Prime Minister. Then based on the recommendation of this committee, the central government will appoint the CBI director. The next thing is Central Vigilance Commission. This commission is a statutory body. It monitors all the vigilance activities under the central government of India and advises various authorities in the central government organizations in case of planning, executing, reviewing and reforming their vigilance work. And this commission consists of a central vigilance commissioner who is the chairperson and two more vigilance commissioners who are the members, and they will be appointed by the President on the recommendations of a committee that is headed by the Prime Minister, and it will have the Home Minister as its member, and it will also have leader of opposition in Lok Sabha. This is the committee who will select this Chief Vigilance Commissioner as well as the 2 Vigilance Commissioners, and their tenure is they can hold the office till the age of 65 years or for a 4-year term, and they are not eligible for another government appointment under the center or state. And now if we see the removal process, they will be removed by the President of India on the grounds of bankruptcy, unsound mind, if they are sentenced to imprisonment for committing a crime, or if they are engaged in any paid employment, or if they have acquired financial or other interests that might affect their judgment, or in the grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity. If the Supreme Court's inquiry finds him guilty, then the person will be removed by the President, and they can even resign by writing to the President. And if we look into what are the powers and functions of this CVC, they have the power of superintendence over the functioning of this Delhi Special Police Establishment, that is the CBI, and they can give directions to this CBI and review the progress of investigations that were conducted by this CBI, and they can even inquire or investigate the cases that were referred to them by the central government, and they can investigate any complaint that is received against any official belonging to All India Service and Group A services. And they can advise the central government on these vigilance matters, but their advices are not binding, and they have the powers of a civil court. The next article is Ensure Borrower Discipline. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of Economy. Here, the NITI Aayog CEO is saying that there is a need for new regulation, new rules to ensure financial discipline among the borrowers. And he also said that agriculture needs reforms related to this Agriculture Produce Market Committee, and also there is a need to scrap this Essential Commodities Act. So from the prelims point of view, from this article we should know what is meant by this crony capitalism, and we should know about NITI Aayog, APMC and Essential Commodities Act. First, let us see what is this concept of crony capitalism. This is a situation where the business people will acquire wealth by getting favorable treatments and benefits from the government. The favorable treatments in the form of getting business contracts, tax concessions and other incentives. So here the business people were accumulating wealth by utilizing their political connections. Their friends in the government will help them to get big contracts and businesses. So creating wealth using political influence in the government has produced a new category of rich people who are known as crony capitalists, and this situation is known as crony capitalism. The next concept is Agriculture Produce Market Committee. Before knowing about this, first we should know what is meant by this agriculture marketing. Agriculture marketing is a movement of agricultural products from farms to the consumers. Under the Constitution of India, agricultural marketing is a state subject, and intra-state trade, that is trade within the state, will fall under the jurisdiction of state governments, whereas interstate trade comes under the central government. Now let's look about this Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. This is a statutory body that is constituted by the state government under APMC Act of 2003 in order to trade in agricultural or horticultural or livestock products. And this committee is responsible for ensuring transparency in the pricing system and also the transactions that take place in the market area. And they should ensure the payment for agricultural produce that was sold by the farmers will be done on the same day. And this committee is responsible for publicizing the data on the arrival and about the rates of this agriculture produce that was brought into the market area for sale by the farmers. And they should work for promoting this agricultural processing and promote public-private partnership in the management of this agricultural markets. The next thing is Essential Commodities Act. This act was enacted by the central government in 1955 in order to control and regulate trade and prices of the commodities that were declared as essential under this act. And this act has empowered the central and the state governments to control the production, supply and distribution of these essential commodities. And the governments were also having the powers to fix the price limits. In case if any particular essential commodity was sold, then it will attract penalties. Which commodities are covered under this Essential Commodities Act? Like petroleum and its products like petrol, diesel, kerosene, solvents, all these. Food stuff including this edible oil and seeds, pulses, sugarcane and its products like sugar, rice, paddy, jute, textiles. Whereas the drug prices of essential drugs were controlled by Drug Pricing Control Order, and this order was brought under this act only, Essential Commodities Act. And also fertilizers come under this essential commodities, whose prices will be controlled by the Fertilizer Control Order. Now, the NITI Aayog CEO is saying that to scrap this Essential Commodities Act, previously NITI Aayog has said that to remove this agricultural products, entire agriculture from this essential commodities list. And now let's see about this NITI Aayog. This National Institution for Transforming India has replaced the Planning Commission of India, which was instituted in 1950. And this is the premier policy think tank of the Government of India, because it provides both directional as well as policy inputs. And its focus is on cooperative federalism, as it brings the states to act together in the national interest. Here you can see the objectives of NITI Aayog: fostering cooperative federalism by making the states actively involved and formulating the plans at the village level and aggregation at higher levels. Special attention to the sections at risk of not benefiting adequately from economic progress, and economic policy that incorporates national security interests and providing feedback for constant innovative improvements, and providing partnership with the national and international think tanks, and to create a knowledge, innovation and entrepreneurial support systems and a platform for resolution of intersectoral and interdepartmental issues, and to provide a state-of-the-art resource center for research on good governance and to focus on technology upgradation and capacity building. These are the objectives of NITI Aayog. Now let's see the composition of this NITI Aayog. It has Prime Minister as a chairperson, and the governing council includes the chief ministers of all the states and the lieutenant governors of all the union territories. And the regional councils are formed on the basis of need, and they comprise of chief ministers and lieutenant governors of the region. Here it will have members on a full-time basis, and it will have 2 part-time members on a rotational basis. And the ex officio members will be 4 from the Council of Ministers as nominated by the Prime Minister. And it will have special invitees, the expert specialists who are practitioners with domain knowledge will be invited as special invitees, and the chief executive officer will be appointed by the Prime Minister for a fixed tenure, who will have the secretary rank, and there will be a secretariat. And this institution is based on 7 pillars of effective governance. They are pro-people, proactivity, participation, empowering, that is women in all the aspects, inclusion of all, that is all the vulnerable groups, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBC, minorities, and equality for providing opportunities to the youth, and transparency for making government visible and responsive. These are the 7 pillars on which NITI Aayog is based on. The next article is why a rate cut won't help lower lending rates. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. The RBI last year has asked the banks to link their interest rate to the external benchmark, because whenever RBI is decreasing its repo rate is the rate at which the banks can borrow money from RBI. So now banks has been benefited with this reduced repo rate. That means they are getting loans at lower interest rate. So banks are supposed to pass on these benefits to their customers. If it is done, then that is known as monetary transmission. But banks are not transferring these benefits that they are getting due to decrease in the repo rate by RBI to its customers. This is because of an internal benchmark rate that was set by the banks, and that internal benchmark rate is known as marginal cost of funds based lending rate. This is the rate below which the banks cannot lend to its customers. And based on this rate, the interest rate for different types of customers will be fixed according to the riskiness of that particular loan. So now we have seen what is meant by marginal cost of funds based lending rate. It is the rate below which the banks cannot lend to its customers. Now let's see a previous year prelims question. What is or the purpose or purposes of marginal cost of funds based lending rate announced by the RBI? These guidelines will help improve the transparency in the methodology followed by the banks for determining the interest rates on advances, and these guidelines will help ensure availability of bank credit at the interest rates which are fair to the borrowers as well as the banks. Both are correct. Just now we have seen about this concept of MCLR. As both are correct, the answer here is C. So this is all for today, and see you all in tomorrow's video. Thank you.